If you don't pick up new challenges, your business is going to stagnate. Most companies that die, that fall off the Fortune 500 list, that stop becoming relevant, it's not because they weren't still great at what they were doing. It's that those things that they were doing stopped mattering to the world. And you see this time and time again.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to look at what does it take to continue the growth of a company, to continue to innovate, to continue to create new systems, to grow beyond these things. And very simply put, it's embracing new challenges. When you embrace new challenges as a leader, you are able to overcome the things that you used to do or the challenges that come up. But if you don't embrace them, if you resist them, you will struggle. You will be frustrated. And so embracing new challenges isn't just for CEOs of the company, it's throughout the organization. So that's what we're going to be focused on today as we look at embracing new challenges on the path to expansion. Our guest today is Anand Kulkarni. He is the CEO of Crowdbotics. They've made the Inc. list before, and they are venture-backed. What I really love about the company is they're able to use code elements and modules, make them reusable so that you can speed the development of new applications. And they're really on the cutting edge of something fantastic here, using AI and using everything else available to speed the development of AI or new development projects. And we sit down and talk about embracing new challenges, what that means from leadership, what it means at a practical level and a personal level. And when you do this consistently, you will grow and your team will grow and you guys will be innovative. And that's kind of the key. My hope is that you'll lean into today's conversation because embracing new challenges you think is just as valuable as, selling the new client or making the new thing, because that's how you get there is by embracing new challenges. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We also have leadership development platforms that really help managers become leaders and help CEOs go from founder to CEO. And if any of these resonate with you, one of the first steps in the process is an absolutely free opportunity to look at where you are in your leadership effectiveness across your organization. We call this the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation, and it's free to you if you are listening to the podcast and you go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today and mention that you listened on the podcast. And the reason why you want to do it is because it is something we used to charge for, and it is $1,000 if you come in by any other channel. So just mention the podcast when you apply, and you will be able to work with me directly. We'll walk you through the 7 dials of leadership across the organization to see where you are, see where the opportunities are doing well, see where you need to focus as you create a team of leaders around you. My desire for you is to walk away with more clarity and more confidence about what to do, and even then, prioritize what's next for you. If we can help you in any way after that, we're happy to help you. But if not, you'll take the plan, run with it, and we'll be good friends. When you think about your own leadership, think about, how you're growing others around you. That's how you scale the company. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, here's the conversation and interview with Anand. Anand, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Gene. How about yourself?
I am great. We're going to have an incredible conversation today. Before we dive into our topic, tell us about your company, Crowdbotics.
Sure. So Crowdbotics, we are a 7-year-old venture-backed technology platform. We are leaders in the code ops movement, the idea that teams can create software about 70% faster by reusing core elements and using new techniques like generative artificial intelligence. We work with customers as large as the US government and the US Department of Defense, as well as lots and lots of high-growth startups and plenty of regional and up-and-coming health, finance, and logistics and manufacturing organizations. 125 people full-time and scaling fast.
Well, I know you are. You made the Inc. list in 2022. And I'm curious, you mentioned AI. I know that a lot of people are curious. They're kind of dabbling. I'm dabbling a little bit in AI as it relates to content, writing a little bit of formulas for spreadsheets. And I thought it was pretty interesting. And I know you can use it for legal and you can use it for coding. How are you guys looking at AI as it evolves over the next 3 years as it impacts your business?
Yeah, hot topic today. So we were actually one of the first users of OpenAI's commercial product almost 3 years ago, using it for software creation. And it's a core part of our own product stack and our own product offering. So a simple way to think about what Crowdbotics does is that we help customers turn ideas into specs, formalized representations of software they're trying to make, and then turn those specs into code, taking the requirements and letting them actually launch running applications from them. Generative AI helps in both of those areas. We use tools like OpenAI's AI solutions to take descriptions of software applications, compare that against a giant library of different pieces and parts of code that our system tracks and knows about, things we call modules. And then we use generative AI to help our customers actually assemble those modules and components directly into running software. That's really where the secret sauce comes from and how we speed up the software development process. So you're not the only ones looking at this. Really, it's almost everyone in the world who is asking the question how they can change their own business with AI.
I hope they are, because I feel like those that don't will be left behind, because it does provide advantages. It may not do everything, but those that understand how to leverage tools like spreadsheets and computers certainly have done well. And this is a new tool that will probably continue to get better. And I appreciate you being here today. Anand, I know that we could talk about your business. I love technology. I used to work for a big 6 company, and we were project managers for lots of code development, and that I'm not a code writer, and I'll tell you that. But I came here not to talk about the business per se, but about your leadership principles and the strategies that really create the kind of alignment across your company. And I know our team does research on everyone that we put on the show. No one gets on here without going through that process. But you talked about embracing new challenges on the path to expansion. Those are big words. It sounds like personal development, but what does that really mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's really a couple reasons that we as leaders look at new challenges and embrace these challenges. And I break these up into the practical and the personal. The practical front is this: if you don't pick up new challenges, your business is going to stagnate. Most companies that die, that fall off the Fortune 500 list, that stop becoming relevant, it's not because they weren't still great at what they were doing. It's that those things that they were doing stopped mattering to the world. And you see this time and time again. The practical reason is that you need to keep embracing these challenges if your business is going to scale up and stay relevant in the world today. But the personal one is more important. The personal reason that we as leaders need to embrace new challenges is to keep the work engaging for ourselves. Because if you say we're going to be content with what we've achieved so far and we're not going to look at the new challenges, there's a part of our brains that will not be as engaged and as functional in executing. And so there's this drive for novelty that you satisfy as a leader by going after those new challenges. And those are the same pieces that help you keep the business growing and expanding and staying relevant as things scale up.
Now, this perfectly makes sense for entrepreneurs, because I've been a serial entrepreneur. I'm sure you probably have too over your journey. We're embracing new challenges. It's just part of the way we look at life. But employees don't necessarily come in for that. Do you have a challenge hiring people in that will accept this embracing new challenges? If so, how do you get them to see this opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem that a lot of serial entrepreneurs recognize and face, is that it's always a challenge to find people who are going to be as willing to scale up as quickly or take ownership in the way that you think that they should. And there's some hacks that people use as part of their hiring process to try and speed up the process. You hire people who have been former founders or operators before. You can always apply the usual techniques of trying to figure out ways to align up their incentives. The thing that I've found that works the best is to take folks, whether they've been entrepreneurs themselves in the past or not, and try to make them entrepreneurs inside the company. Give them big spans of ownership and a clear mandate for what success looks like, and then really encourage them to design and develop the process as CEO of their own team, their own department, or their own function. And it doesn't always work. Not everyone wants to go and think about their line of work that way. But when they do, and people who really love that mindset and opportunity are given that opportunity, you find this magical thing happens where people suddenly grow into the function, they accelerate, they start to speak the same language that you as an entrepreneur speak. And there is not that much that is more rewarding than seeing that change happen, because it means that you can create CEOs inside every function of your organization. Not easy, but when you can do it, it's something to really love.
Anna just said something about being the CEO of the team. It really is about that entrepreneur spirit. If you get people to feel like owners inside their roles, they will look at things differently. They will look at the details. They will be proactive. But if they don't, they will just show up, clock in, clock out, go home. But those entrepreneurs, much like you are, when they're not working, their brain is working on solving the problems and innovating the next level. And that's your style of leadership. It's able to activate that when you know how to lead powerfully. My hope is that listening to this podcast will help you do that. But if I can help you in any way, just reach out. Now back to Anand. Is this part of what you think keeps your company on the cutting edge? Like you said, you were working with ChatGPT before. I even knew there was a ChatGPT out there, the OpenAI 3 years ago. I think I remembered it earlier this year, maybe January or so was the first time I heard about it. But how do you do that with your team?
Yeah, so it was GPT-3 that was out 3 years ago. They hadn't put the chat on there yet, but yeah, our own team is really the places where we are staying at the bleeding edge and innovating. I think it's in no small part due to the fact that we have people who are willing to take that leap and that ownership and that drive on new areas. So we've seen a few places where we have been able to effectively stay ahead of the rest of the market in driving innovation because somebody was willing to take a bet on a big idea and really execute on developing that below the management level. And those small bets by people who are committed to going and exploring, that's how you get a high performer identified in your organization, but it's also the way that you can move the ball forward in multiple parts of the organization at the same time. So that's been an exciting development for us, especially when looking at things like AI, but also in looking at other areas of the business, operational elements and how we deliver to our customers, marketing opportunities for how we find and source customers, even places where we think about our own position, narrative, story, or product lines are places where having those individual owners and leaders makes a lot of value for us.
I know that your journey to leadership doesn't come without some failures and some inflection points or some lessons learned. Is there a time back that you can share with us that really defines how you've grown to be the leader you are today?
Gosh, I think there's no entrepreneur who has gotten to where they are without identifying mistakes that they've made. And the challenge we always ask ourselves, the one that I ask my own team, is that you want to make better mistakes tomorrow. You find the things that didn't work, you learn from those, and you make sure that the mistakes you make are better the next time you see those situations. So thinking about my own experience, there have been a lot of places where I think we have as an organization, or me as an entrepreneur, grown from ways that I used to operate in the past. So to give you some simple examples, as a leader, this is my second time running a venture-backed technology organization. My first one did not grow to be as big as this one or as fast as this one. And part of the reason that it didn't, in reflection, is the way that I thought about my own relationship as a leader to the organization. My main method to get stuff done at that last organization was to push myself harder. So I would pull all-nighters, I would drive harder, I would try and do more of the work myself. And this is antithetical to the ways that most organizations actually take advantage of their people and resources to effectively work as a team to advance the organization's goals. So shifting my thinking about what my job was as a CEO and as a leader was one of the best ways I was able to actually effect faster and more effective growth. You do have to work relentlessly as an entrepreneur no matter what, but there are ways of working that let you work through your organization to drive scale and output without making yourself the limiting factor in your own organization's success.
Anand, I feel like you're describing the difficulties of going from founder to CEO. Founders see their business and they're so ingrained into it. They know every part of it. They want to be in every meeting they can, and they try to optimize their time for that. But there gets to be a limit where you're the bottleneck of the business, especially if the solution is, yeah, I'll just do this one. Whereas a CEO knows that they're building a team around them. And so how did you make that transition? Was there anything specific that you can share with us about letting go of that founder identity to become the CEO that you are today?
That's a great question. And I think the way you're characterizing it as the founder to CEO shift is one that it takes a lot of entrepreneurs a long time to master and get right. For me, the key pieces here were thinking about my own job function as one that I needed to fire myself from in every part of the business to scale up. This is a notion that's sometimes described, I think famously by in an article on the First Round site, is giving away your Legos, right? Give away the stuff that you are trying to own. And what that really means is parts of the business that you are building are really only done once you have given them away to somebody else who can competently scale it and run it as well as you have, or preferably better. And while there's the temptation to say, well, I'm going to keep my hands on this part of the wheel forever, every time. And while there's always the chance that as soon as you give something to somebody else, they're going to execute on it slightly worse than you are in the beginning, the upside advantages you get from doing that are so big because they let you focus on the parts of the business that need attention, that don't have other resources attached to them. And that's the only way you can scale an organization is by making use of the folks that you've got and scaling up those functions accordingly. So that takes learning. It takes falling flat on your face sometimes from overwork, and then eventually reach a place where you start to look more aggressively for things that you can give away to other people and trying to solve for the questions of how fast you can scale out new functions, as opposed to saying, how much more am I going to do?
Now, we've been talking about this challenge of going from founder to CEO. Here's the reality. Many times my clients will come to me and say, I think I'm the bottleneck of the company. I think that, I've got people around me, but I haven't let go of the things I need to let go of. And that's the problem. And they can't blame anyone else because they're holding on tight to all the meetings they go to and all the individual elements of strategy and execution that they won't let others do because they feel like in some way that's how they add value. But in order to be the CEO, you've got to shift your identity from founder to CEO. It may sound like just words, but when you have an identity of CEO, you are building other leaders around you. When you have the founder, you're just trying to execute on an idea and get traction and prove to people that you can create something of value. There's many other elements to it, but CEOs are building more leaders. Now, I work with this all the time in my business. If I can help you in any way, I'd love to. Back to Anand. My job is to look for patterns. And you mentioned earlier, make better mistakes tomorrow. And I bet your journey from founder to CEO was a series of making better mistakes each day after that. And now that you are the CEO of this company that's growing and scaling and building the team around you, you're asking your people to do the same thing.
The next level after you as a CEO have figured out what you're doing is really trying to figure out how to get your team to improve their own execution to match the same transition pattern. And you see this a lot in up and coming leaders in an organization where their own tendency, especially shifting from IC to manager for the first time, or manager to senior manager or director, where someone's tendency is going to be to overwork instead of capacity build. And there is an extent to which you can start to overwork into a problem and get results, and then very quickly where the scaling stops, unless you manage to figure out how to scale through your own resources. The job of the CEO in cases like this shifts, and this was actually a really eye-opening thing that someone told to me in reflecting on my own management style. They said, your job here as CEO is actually, it's not just to problem solve. Maybe it's not even to problem solve at all. It's to coach your executives to solve problems and coach your people to solve problems. And that was a profound change in how I thought about what I did day to day.
Yeah.
I love to problem solve like all of us do as entrepreneurs, but finding people who will do that problem solving with you or for you or next to you is the best way to scale up how fast your organization can do it.
What I love about this conversation is it hits home for me personally as I grow and scale my business, right? Because I coach others, but when I'm reflecting on where we are as a company, I can't do everything. I've been tracking my own hours not everything, but certain key things. I've gotten it down to I'm coaching 6 hours a week, which may sound like an absolute crazy amount to not coach for a coaching business, but I have a team around me that I'm building the capacity for growth. And that's what you're describing is being able to make those shifts. And I'm pointing this out, not just for me, but for those listening in, that you've got to be willing to let go of who you are, let go of those roles that you feel like you've got to play in. And what you're describing is the journey that you made. Is there anything else as it relates to making that shift from founder to CEO that you feel like our team listening in today needs to know or understand?
Everyone focuses on the basics of management and CEOing, looking at the metrics, understanding your cadence, setting and achieving ambitious targets. I think that folks underappreciate how much the folks that we have who are the executives, the doers, who are actually making the company and building it, appreciate the chance to have that same advice about delegation, guidance, reflection given back to them, in the sense that it's not a piece where you can expect folks to figure this out by default, especially if folks are high performers. They will have a natural tendency to say, yes, I want to overwork my way into this and solve it through sheer force of will. A lot of times it works too, which is magical, but seeing it work at scale means reminding folks to take that space for themselves, and also to figure out how to build their organizations under and around them. So I think that seeing that change happen is always rewarding for us as leaders, but it's also how you drive great results.
A great way for us to wind this down. I really appreciate your time here. Anand, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gene.
Wow, what a great interview. I love the way it kind of morphed its way into talking about this founder to CEO challenge. And it's something that a lot of leaders deal with and have to overcome in order to scale their company to that next level. And if you're in the midst of that right now, I'd love to get to know you. I'd love to serve you in some way. I have a lot of free tools I can give you. One of those is the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. If that's something of interest to you, it's absolutely free. If you're listening to the podcast, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. When you think of leadership and you think of growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.